Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to stick around as we dive headfirst into the latest installment of Mission Impossible. And that way you can decide for yourself, is this the final reckoning for Tom Cruise? My name is Kyle. Thank you for jumping into Movie Tactics with me today, where we not only discuss the characters, the plot, the overall story of a movie, but also what makes a movie special, the action sequences, the firearms, the props, the knives, the cars, the vehicles, the planes, what really has you leaving the theater with that wow factor. And on today's review, we're going to dive right into a spoiler-free review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Ethan Hunt is back, played by Tom Cruise, as well as some familiar faces from movies past in this 29-year-long series of Mission Impossible movies. There's also some new faces on here as well. This movie came out May 23rd, 2025. It's going right off of the curtails of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, which came out July 12th of 2023, so only a couple of years ago. Ethan again is faced with the Entity, which is this rogue artificial intelligence AI, even more relatable now than it was 2 years ago. This Entity now is taking over all of the command centers for all the countries that have nuclear arsenals. And Ethan, along with his IMF team, is sent on a mission right from the president to stop the Entity. This, again, is taken off right from Dead Reckoning Part 1. We already know that a submarine, a Russian nuclear sub, sank with the Entity on board, where they have the source code. So you can kind of see in the trailer where this is going. They're going to go and try to get the source code and try to take down this catastrophe-causing AI. Some very memorable action sequences throughout this movie. Of course, there is a submarine scene that is just absolutely insane, done very well. That was the part where your kind of heart is racing. I remember just kind of clenching my fist out like, oh, what's gonna happen? All right. It's pretty wild. And they're going really, really far down under the Arctic Circle. So freezing temperatures, pressure, there's all that kind of taken into play in these scenes with the submarine. There's also a plane scene that is involving a couple of different airplanes that is like really the big high-flying, no CGI stunt in this movie. And that's a big deal about these movies. Tom goes all out in the action. I'm a 90s kid. I grew up with this series of Mission Impossible movies. I was just a kid in 96 when the first one came out. So I remember catching it, I think, on TNT or USA, and just kind of seeing the cut TV version, the clean version of the movies. But then I started seeing like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all those in the theater as you got a little bit older, because there was actually several years in between movies. There was actually 6 years into between a couple of them there. So they were spread pretty far out over the last 29 years or so. But they have been getting increasingly better over time. Those middle three, like Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout, are some masterpieces in film and in action movies. Dare I say Fallout, and honestly, I think Ghost Protocol as well, have some of the most insane action scenes of any movie out there, and they're done just so well deserving of the 90-some% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, this movie, The Final Reckoning, as well as Dead Reckoning Part 1, didn't get as much praise as those movies did, and I can see that, because this is a over 3-hour long movie. It's trying to wrap up what happened in Part 1 in Dead Reckoning, so I get the runtime. They're trying to squeeze as much as they can. But what's interesting, and it might be part related to how this is shot, is J.J. Abrams was part of the 3 best films, right? So Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout. J.J. was part of that whole series. So from just the visual aspects of it, on top of Tom's ideas for all the action sequences, I can kind of see why maybe Dead Reckoning Part 1 and then going into The Final Reckoning were just kind of fluffed up a little bit. They didn't have that same style. Jumping into my personal review of this, again, there's no spoilers here. Watching this movie with that 3-hour runtime in the theater, I thought that there was a lot of fluff in there. I thought that especially the first act seemed to be jumpy, and a lot of the scenes just came out of nowhere, whereas in the past, Mission Impossible kind of just rolled into scenes. You get kind of a setup to what's going on. This movie seemed really chopped, and I feel like they tried to maybe squeeze a 4-hour movie into 3, so it's possible that they should have just fixed the storyline and maybe made either 2 movies, which would have pushed the number 9, which I don't know if that would have been any better, but they should have just shortened down to like the 2 hour window. Because if you think about it, a lot of movies now are an hour and a half to 2 hours. Once you start pushing that 3 hour movie, psychologically, you're thinking in your mind, do I really want to sit there for 3 hours? And sure enough, everyone in my theater, as you're watching, everyone's getting up at least once to go to the bathroom or get another drink, whatever. It's 3 hours is a long time to sit there. But in The Final Reckoning, I thought like the first bit was being so choppy. And then also there's an explanation of, if you've never seen Mission Impossible before, here's where we got this from this movie. And they kind of go back and forth like that throughout the movie a little bit, where they're discussing things from the past that are relatable to this movie. I think that kind of took away a little bit from the movie. But then, of course, you have the action sequences. The use of firearms and vehicles and planes have always been really well done in Mission Impossible. However, not to like the John Wick level. I know we're always talking about John Wick on the channel being like the quintessential tactical golden goose of tactical firearm usage in movies. But with The Final Reckoning, they were talking about like, I'm out of ammo, and then they never show a reload, or they're out of ammo, but it doesn't look like they're out of ammo, they didn't shoot enough, or whatever it is. They just have like some interesting firearms. In fact, they actually take a H&K G36 from, I believe it was Mission Impossible 3, the bridge scene there, where the bridges, they're going and taking Philip Seymour Hoffman, and they're kidnapping him or breaking him out of the prison convoy there, and Ethan grabs a G36 from the trunk. And I remember seeing that was an iconic scene from that movie. Well, Paris, who was a villain in the last movie and saved by Ethan and now is part of the team there, she's back and she has that G36 I saw. And it was just kind of fun to kind of see those little details. But overall, it seemed like they're kind of weak on the tactical aspect of it all. They kind of focused heavily on a couple of action sequences throughout the movie, and then the rest of the movie was kind of just fluff. There's some talking there. There's some weird structure with how like the presidency is set up and lack of security around the president too. I noticed just from that detail, I was like, all right, okay, interesting. So it just seemed like they just have this president wandering around this facility. It's fine. Those kind of things you notice, I think. I feel like those little details where you see all these different action movies and then you kind of see one like this that might be labeled more generic. But not only that, The Final Reckoning should be The Final Reckoning. And again, there's no spoilers here, but I don't know if Tom's done. You know, he loves making movies. He's always talking about Mission Impossible being his life and movies being his life. And he enjoys bringing that to the film and the screen, which is great because a lot of his movies are very well done. He only picks and chooses some of the best acting that he can do in a certain type of movie or a story. So a lot of them are done very well. I don't know if he's done with this movie. I feel like this movie was a little lackluster, and Rotten Tomatoes is giving it 80% here, only a couple of days in. So I have a feeling that a lot of people are feeling the same. It was just kind of on the border of generic, and the fact that it is just nostalgia, and that we're looking to wrap up this long, almost 30-year run of movies. So I'm going to give Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning a 62%. I know, I just think this borders again on that nostalgia versus is it a great action movie that lives up to Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and especially Fallout. I don't know if it does. 62%. What are your thoughts on The Final Reckoning? Have you seen the movie yet? Do you want to see the movie? Are you kind of bored with Tom Cruise, bored with this action movie type of scene? I don't know if you grew up with Mission Impossible like I did. Let me know in the comments below what maybe your favorite Mission Impossible movie is. Also, are you interested in a spoiler review of this movie? Obviously, I have some feelings and some thoughts growing up with this series and how this is wrapping up. I would definitely film a spoiler-filled review for you guys. Let me know in the comments below. We're new here, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Also, check out my full recap of all 7 of the Mission Impossible movies. I just did a full recap on the channel, so that video is live. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next movie review.